Mercedes car for 2023 looks insane. So we're going to be going through that and 5 other stories in today's video. So make sure you like this video, and if you want more Mercedes F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into the first story, because Mercedes have actually mentioned that Red Bull's 25% wind tunnel F1 deficit will bite. Mercedes believe a wind tunnel running deficit for Red Bull of more than 25% in 2023 could prove critical in helping it close up to Formula 1 world champions. And this could be Mercedes' opportunity to finally get the win back. As part of its punishment for breaching last year's cost cap, Red Bull has handed a $7 million fine and a 10% reduction in wind tunnel as part of F1's aerodynamic testing restrictions. The extra loss of wind tunnel running will mean Red Bull is heavily compromised compared to Mercedes, which gets a lot of extra running as a result of finishing third in the Constructors' Championship. So what this means is that there's going to be a lot of advantages that this next Mercedes car has, especially for 2023, which I think will give it more speed and more power. According to F1 sporting regulations, Red Bull as Constructors Champions should have been allowed 70% of the full wind tunnel running, which equates to 224 runs. Second place Ferrari should get 75% and 240 runs, with Mercedes on 80% and 256 runs. But as a result of Red Bull's drop, it will now only get 63% of the allocation and 202 runs. This means Mercedes gets approximately 27% more wind tunnel allowance and wind tunnel runs. Speaking about the challenge of closing up the gap to Red Bull this winter with the F1 cost cap in place, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff reckons the aero testing deficit could be something that makes an impact. Asked if a recovery was more difficult now that there was a spending limit, Wolff said, "I think it's harder because you can't really invest more in order for the outcome to come quicker. But I think how the aerodynamic regulations are designed and the penalty that they've gotten, it's 25% less wind tunnel, and that can have an effect," said Wolff. That way, the regulations, the ATR restrictions, have been set in place means there are the teams that are further back who can really make a big jump compared to the front runners. There's also a reason why we will see much closer championships in the future, because if you are last, you will have 40% more. So clearly, that is an advantage that you have to utilize. It is given that we can utilize it, who knows? They, referring to Red Bull, are a brilliant racing team. It will give them an extra motivation, and against Ferrari, it's 7%. But it's around marginal games, and we have been a bit closer to Ferrari in the last quarter of the season. Mercedes was held back this year by pausing development of the W13 as it chased cures for the car's early season porpoising problems. But once it got on top of the core issues, it was able to make rapid improvements and managed to dominate the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend, with George Russell winning both the sprint and main Grand Prix. Asked if the strong end of the season form had left Mercedes confident it would be back in the fight at the front next year, Wolff said, "I'm never confident. I'm a glass half empty guy and kind of never believe that the job that we're doing is good enough. I'm not sure at all whether we can bounce back to a position where we compete for other championships, because you need to acknowledge that the competition is strong. But we will do everything in our power, everything to set our objectives high to try and reach that." This is very important, because when it comes to the car for next year for Mercedes, it is going to be a lot more faster due to the main advantage they have over Red Bull and also Ferrari, which could put them back in that championship title. Now, getting into the second story, next year we're back, declares Wolff, as Mercedes aim to recover from character building season. Toto Wolff has sent a message to Mercedes rivals ahead of the winter break and the 2023 season, insisting that the team will be back to their best after a rollercoaster campaign under F1's new technical regulations. Mercedes entered 2022 as a reigning 8-time Constructors Champions, but produced a troubled W13 package that saw them fall behind Red Bull and Ferrari in the pecking order, promptly plenty of head scratching and experience. After an intense period of development, Mercedes returned to the top step of the podium with a 1-2 result in Brazil, only to experience another challenging weekend at the Abu Dhabi finale, where a lack of straight line speed and tire woes scuppered their efforts. Speaking to Sky Sports F1 following Lewis Hamilton's late retirement and George Russell's quiet run to P5 at Yas Marina, Wolff said, "We were the third quickest behind Red Bull and Ferrari, with one breaking down and one running out of tires. It's a precise summary of the season, and here we are. I think we cooked the tires on the first few laps. We attacked strong, the car seemed to be really good, then the front right just gave up, so maybe that's something we should have predicted." We knew Abu Dhabi would be different one out of the car, so at least the correlation is good. And Brazil was just spectacular from the beginning to 1 and 1-2, so at least we tick the box with a race win. Wolff went on to highlight the progress Mercedes have made amid the challenges they faced this year, while explaining how we intend to use the W13 as inspiration for the entire workforce going forward. First of all, we have to put these cars in reception in Brackley and Brixworth to remind us every single day of how difficult it can be. They know, everyone who is watching today, that this is a character building season, not a blip of one race, a full season. We kept pushing hard, the engine came along really well, and I'm proud of what we achieved there. On the chassis side, there were more bad moments than good ones, but the good ones were spectacular like a week ago, and they made us feel how good it can be. Now we are just pushing forward for next year. It's rough, it's bad, it's okay to feel like this, but next year we are back. And this is honestly huge, especially coming from someone like Toto Wolff, who has done everything for this Mercedes team, and he's definitely had a great season. So getting into the third story, Mick Schumacher drops clear Mercedes hint with F1 future yet to be determined. Mick Schumacher has a late been connected with the safer driver job at Mercedes. Mick Schumacher has demanded that a transition to Mercedes as their driver for 2023 onwards can't be precluded in the wake of partaking in the last race for Haas at the Abu Dhabi Fabulous Prix over the course of the end of the week. The 23-year-old was not held by an American group after a tempestuous mission in which he acquired an accident blissful standing for costing them a few large number of pounds in harm fixes. Now the reason why this is a big deal, because if you didn't hear the news already, Daniel Ricciardo actually signed with Red Bull and he is the reserve driver for them. It was sad to see. A lot of us did want Daniel Ricciardo as a Mercedes reserve driver, but I think Schumacher would be a great fit for that option. Now getting into the fourth story in today's video, Lewis Hamilton said that this has been a complicated season. At the end of this Yas Marina Sunday, Lewis Hamilton, British Mercedes driver, shared his feelings about the F1 season just ending. Lewis told, "The hardest thing we have faced over the course of these months. I think having to get up and every single day has been very difficult. It wasn't really easy to react after every problem, every time getting strength and getting up again. All these difficulties, however, they showed our strength. They showed that I'm grateful for that, and at the end of the race at Yas Marina, Hamilton said, I was hoping for a better result, but the Red Bull were 6/10 faster than us on the straight, and that we were flying. Our goal for tomorrow is in the meantime to finish the race after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. A historic fact has arrived for the first time in his Formula One career that Lewis Hamilton has not won a single race in a season. So it was sad to see this record actually go. Since 2007, the season in which Lewis finished second tied with teammate Fernando Alonso for McLaren Mercedes and only 1 point behind Kimi. There have been an incredible dominance of the British, given that in the following years and until 2021, he achieved at least one victory. Now, the series of season with at least one victory ends at 15. Hamilton has the desire to retire yet, as the renewal between Sir Lewis and Mercedes is not easy given the high engagement of the British now, also with Brazilian citizenship. However, both parties have begun to discuss the future. At least for the moment, Hamilton will not retire, or at least not in the next few years, as the deal with Mercedes is approaching. From the latest rumors, it seems that the agreement is very close to arriving with the multi-year project. The writer has in fact taken a position on these rumors. I think it will be a multi-year contract. There is always this question of retirement that always revolves around me, but honestly, I don't like the idea at all. I don't feel like that yet. And I think the reason why is because Lewis Hamilton definitely wants to win that 8 drivers championship. It is very important not only for his legacy, but also, for himself as well. I think for him to win that 8, it would cement him as the greatest driver of all time, because right now he is currently tied with Schumacher. I definitely think he should have got the one last season at Abu Dhabi. There is a lot of controversy behind that, but when it comes to what is coming moving forward, I think Lewis Hamilton is going to keep gunning for that 8th and continue to fight for it every single day. So I love that from Lewis Hamilton. Now getting into the 5th story, George Russell had this to say for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, as he said it was a Mercedes reality check. George Russell says that the Abu Dhabi served as a reality check for Mercedes Formula One team after the excitement of the previous week's 1-2 in Brazil. Lewis Hamilton and Russell qualified 5th and 6th for the season finale, with Russell claiming 5th in the race after his teammate's late retirement. Russell's day was made harder after he lost out to Lando Norris on the first lap and was initially stuck behind the McLaren driver. He also lost time with a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release, which he took at his second stop, after which he set tires of fastest most laps. I think it's a bit of a reality check for all of us, he said when asked by motorsport.com after his race, and very much needed because we still recognize that we've got a lot to do if we want to fight for Red Bull next year. Clearly we have a car with huge amount of potential, but unfortunately that performance window is far too narrow, and those performance swings we've seen from the highs of Budapest, Brazil, Mexico, Singapore, comparing to the likes here at Monza, Spa, are just far too vast. Abu Dhabi, I saw the team suffering more with porpoising than it had for a while, which made life tough for the drivers. I think we weren't the only team to have experienced a bit of porpoising in this year. The changes that FIA are making with the raised floor edge are going to make an improvement to that. It definitely adds quite a lot of fatigue. I forgot what it's like to drive with the car bouncing around through the corners, down the straight a little bit, so I'll be happy if I turn up in Bahrain next year with none of that. Russell was keen to put his maiden win in Interlagos into the context of the full season. So I think this is honestly fantastic, guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Peace.